everybody, I'm Barney Saylor. Welcome back to In the Record Room, the YouTube show that is for all things vinyl and all things soul. And look who's here today. It's only DJ collector and vinyl archaeologist, the wonderful Greg Belson. Greg, welcome to In the Record Room, sir. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Barney. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. It's a lovely Saturday evening here, and I love nothing more than listening to people tell stories about vinyl. So I'm really thrilled that we finally got you on the show. And listen, it's very exciting just to kind of pick your brains for half an hour. So
no, I'm looking forward to it, and yeah, it's a great concept, and I love what you've had on the show already. You know, some great stories from Adrian and Lynn, etc., etc. So I'm looking forward to taking us on a bit of a gospel journey. I think it's the done thing.
Greg, I'm coming with you wherever you lead. That'll be brilliant. I should also say to anybody watching that, could you please subscribe to the channel, because it allows us to develop the brand, reach out to more interesting people like Greg, and keep the stories coming. So I think that's probably the place to begin, Greg. You know what I'm going to say. We'll talk about your chosen records in a little while, but perhaps we might begin by just asking, where did it all begin for you?
Well, there's several cycles in where it all began with me. That's the crux of it, really, is that when I was a nipper, when I was a kid, my parents bought me records at a young age. I wasn't well when I was 6 or 7 years of age. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, and to make me feel better, I'd be bought a record.
Right.
And very often I would sleep downstairs in the living room because I couldn't make the stairs because I wasn't well.
Wow.
The doctors didn't know what was wrong with me for a little while. So, but what it did mean is by living in the living room, I had access to the stereo.
Ah.
so I would take the record that they would buy me, which the very first one was Bay City Rollers. And, yeah, right. But I would put the needle on the record, and I would feel better. I would feel rewarded that things were okay.
Yeah.
So I guess from an early age, I figured out that I had it in my head that collecting records was a pleasurable thing. But moving forward to when I actually started properly collecting, which is about 10-year timeline.
Right.
Moving forward, and I started to go to my very first black music record fairs at Gloucester Road when I was 17. And I remember before I got through those front doors, I listened to Patrick Forge, Giles Peterson, Bob Jones. I listened to their radio shows religiously. Yeah. And just nervously jotted down. Most of them always spelling mistakes because I was too eager to write them down. Than to actually listen to it. That was a John Lucian recording or whatever. Yeah. And my first experience walking into that Gloucester Road record fair with my little tiny list, pencil written list. That was the first moment that I became a collector. So I was about 17 or 18.
Wow.
Walked through the door and I got pulled out of the crowd by Martin Davis of Soul Explosion Records, because I think he could smell a fresh fish, you know. He was like, right, okay. And he had some of the records that I wanted. Then he put me in contact with somebody else in the fair. And I must have spent, as a 17 or 18-year-old, I must have spent a fair amount of cheddar that day.
Wow. Wow.
But that's how the collecting started.
Yeah.
Very quickly came the first gigs that I started to play, because I started to get a nice record collection together. 1988 was my first gig. We played at Bacchus Wine Bar Danceteria in Kingston upon Thames.
Sounds fabulous. I bet it's not still there.
It is still there.
Oh, it is still there, is it?
It is still there. At the time, it was being used as a restaurant during the day. Yeah. A basement restaurant. Yeah. And kind of like a comedy place or something like that. So for them to be playing music was actually kind of the first for them at the time. So, and I ended up playing with this guy who went on to record for Defected Records, ATFC. Right. So me and him were playing together. I was playing hip hop and classic funky breaks. You know, that was my thing back in those days. Yeah. And but as the hip hop for me, the quality of hip hop was going away. I like the sample driven golden era style stuff, you know. As that started to drop off with sample clearances costing a fortune and this, that, and the other. I started to dig deeper into the rare side of things. That's when my taste evolved from the classic James Brown, Earth, Wind and Fire, the mandrill, those kind of styles. And I started to dig deeper into 45s, jazz side of things. I used to love collecting jazz. Loved it.
Well, you still do, though, I imagine, don't you?
I do. I still love jazz, but when I moved to the States in 2005, I had to get some money together to help move the collection. And one thing that I had to sacrifice was I needed quick money, and I sacrificed the bulk of my jazz collection.
Wow!
And if there's any one regret that I would have in my music collecting is getting rid of my jazz collection, because it was pretty stellar back then. But I don't have any regrets, because otherwise I wouldn't be living in Los Angeles. So,
and we wouldn't be talking now with you. At the heart of what must be an amazing experience. Going back to what you were talking about, so you were buying records from record fairs and you were digging deeper. How did you get hold of things? Was it easy to get hold of things? This is pre-Discogs, isn't it? So this is...
way before. It was the days of Soul Bowl and mailing lists. Essentially, every dealer that I knew, Virgo Vibes, Soul Bowl, reaching back now. Soul Explosion, Soul Brother at the time were around. And this guy called Jasper, Des Toussaint was around. At these times, and everybody was sending out lists. So you'd wait for the list. You'd wait for the list to come through, and you power through it and try and be the first on the phone to make the purchase, you know. But I used to love those days, because it was definitely a sporadic and momentary thing, rather than you had to do it, you had to be on it. You know, you snooze, you lose mentality.
So it's kind of, there was a spontaneity to it, knowing, because I'm guessing also the list would appear and there would be stuff on there that you would know was unusual or rare or would be in demand. So as you say, you'd have to be first on the phone to get it. So so was it quite competitive collecting as well?
Oh, absolutely. You if you got your post at 8 in the morning, you might well be half hour behind somebody who got their post at 7:30.
So you might have missed out already on it.
You might have missed out on it just because the post guy didn't arrive early, you know. And those times were good. I found, because sometimes you take a punt on something through what you think is a good connection. You know, what that producer was associated with that album that was good before or whatever, and you get it through the post and it'll be a turkey, you know. It was the age of kind of taking more chances, I think. And through that, you found so many good things by chance. By chance. With the advent of Discogs, and I love Discogs, and I love the way that record collecting has evolved. But now everything is very deliberate, and everything is very the lines and the tree on how to find things is much more prevalent than it was back in the day. And sometimes when you take the punt and you take the chance, it's very rewarding when it comes off, you know.
It is, and I understand what you mean, because I mean, one of the things I find interesting about Discogs is when you come up against a track and there's no YouTube posting. So you have no idea, but you know it's a label, and then you think, well, I wonder, and then you start digging around, and it isn't the same. And you know, it's a much more mechanical process. I think there's less, as you say, of taking a chance, especially in these kind of things. But maybe, I mean, that brings me on nicely, because as I said earlier, you're very Googleable. You've had a lot, and you do a lot, and I'll get you to talk.
As I said earlier, I've never heard anybody mention that about me. Many other things, but Googleable. No.
I made that word up this morning. But anyway, we might move on to things like deep funk and hogwash. I'm really interested in. So you started started off in the wine bar, you stopped playing hip hop, you started going past that and looking to the source of these things, and then there are lots of stories about deep funk and hogwash. So perhaps you might just talk to me about those.
Yeah, well, how deep funk came around was I was actually running a club with DJ Vadim, who's been signed to Ninja Tune and Barely Breaking Even, and his own label Jazz Fudge, and we were running a gig in Teddington,
right,
just south of London.
Yeah,
and it was a gig at the Clarence Hotel. We called it Urban Soul,
right.
And what we did is we hired in Joey J's Good Time sound system, put a bit of bump behind it all, you know,
nice,
and we just started bringing in guest DJs. So it was Vadim and I, and we started off. Our second guest was Giles Peterson.
Brilliant.
And it was only 7 till 1 in the morning.
Yeah,
but we got it absolutely roadblocked. It was an awesome experience.
Yeah,
and consequently, I'd started hooking up with Kev Darge by going to Leave My Wife Alone at the WAG.
Yeah,
and the other clubs that he was playing up in town. And I said, I started building a relationship with Kev.
Yeah,
and got. And it was an absolute roadblock. And Kev, in his Elgian accent, fantastic. He goes, "Oh my God, fucking marvelous!" It was like he was amazed at how busy the club was.
Yeah.
Consequently, he suggested, "Let's get together, do a co-promotion, and we'll do something uptown."
Brilliant.
We had no idea what we were going to call it, just that we wanted to work together.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do something that was definitive funk night.
Yeah.
That was all Kev's idea. That was he wanted to do something that involved, not at the time we didn't call deep funk. We called it 60s organ grooves.
Yes,
and things, you know. So we had downstairs, we had 60s organ grooves, and new arrival, new discoveries.
Yeah.
Upstairs we had 70s modern soul and P-funk. We actually had P-funk on the agenda.
Okay, well that was big for a while, wasn't it?
But as the original concept, it didn't last too long because there was two. The idea was to get DJs in that represented that style. So we had Jasper the Vinyl Junkie in for P-Funk.
Yeah.
I brought Snowboy on board because he played at my club as well.
Yeah.
And we brought Snowboy in to do the 60s organ grooves and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was it just didn't work as a two-floor statement. And so I ended up leaving the project fairly early, and Kev kind of like downsized it to him and Snowboy.
Yeah.
And then we'll bring in people like Ian Wright and make it into deep funk, as it's now widely known as a Wikipedia link or whatever, you know. And fair play to him for running with it, because he's made it into a. It's not often that you can take a club name and turn it into a genre.
No, absolutely. It's quite unusual. Yeah. What were the big tunes? There must have been a few big tunes that broke there, or you broke, or were synonymous.
Big tune for me was Cain and Abel Toehold, which is actually a version of the Stax tune.
Right.
But a heavily, almost rock funk, but hard funk.
Yeah.
And it was album only. And I kind of got a bit of ribbing from the boys because it was an album track and we were only supposed to be playing 45s. But that one was a big tune for me. But other tracks that were getting played at the time were Third Guitar, Baby Don't Cry.
Okay,
on Rojack.
Yeah.
Leonard King, The Barracuda.
Nice, yeah.
Which is it's almost like a mod organ instrumental, but it was a great mover.
Yeah.
We always used to end up on the Martinis hungover. which is kind of like a little stroller, and for no reason whatsoever, in the middle of the track it just stops, and the guy goes and it goes back into the track again. It was the archetypal end of nighter. It was like, I've had enough, I'm off. You know. Other tracks were Al White and the Highlighters, Noise with the Boys.
Yeah, yeah.
Just the Lemuria, A Hunk of Heaven, which got played in the 70s room.
Okay, yeah.
Raw Soul Express, The Way We Live, that got played there. So it was a breaking ground there.
And
a lot of tunes got played. Essential tunes did get played from the get-go. It was an amazing club night. Originated at Ormonds in the centre of London, which was a 2-floor venue. So, and then Kev moved it around a couple of venues before he found Madame Jojo's.
Yes, of course. And then, so you moved on to Hogwash was next, wasn't it?
Yeah. I was actually doing some production as well at the time.
That's right, yeah.
We got into making beats. I met my friend Nick Faber.
That was Appleseed, wasn't it?
Appleseed and the Hightower set. We were signed to Bob Jones's label, Black on Black, for a while. And meeting Nick was a revelation, really, because he was trained by George Martin at Air Studios.
Wow.
And so when we got to doing production, which is just around his house with one of these old school Commodore-style programs with the numbers running down, he was able to tie in tricks of the trade. And we got things sounding really juicy and fat, and I think we had quite an identifiable sound. Yeah. So we did that from leaving Deep Funk through the Hogwash era. Yeah. That's when we did our production. But Hogwash was a night that I ran in Kingston, my hometown.
It ran for 14 years, didn't it? I think.
That was a different club that I played actually, which was run by. No. That was the Great Escape.
All right, okay.
Which was a Thursday night club run by a friend of mine, DJ Pony.
Yeah.
He has an interesting side story. The fact that he calls himself DJ Pony is supposedly he invented My Little Pony.
Right. Okay.
and we were like, "Are you sure?" And he was like, "Yep." I was okay. It's either a great pub story or absolutely true.
Well, I mean, I suppose what are you going to say? You just go, yeah, all right, fair enough.
And I invented the wheel. I don't know.
I can travel in time.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, so take me back to Hogwash because I interrupted you, didn't I?
No, that's all good, my friends. All good. But Hogwash was at a venue called the Blue Room. Yeah. Which is where I spent a lot of my time. As the production crew started to make money and we started to get bookings to DJ places, I was lucky enough that I no longer had to do my day job, which was working for various record companies or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
And so I dedicated a lot of time at the Blue Room, which is in Hampton Court, and we put together a series of influential family nights. And what we mean by that is that people that came to that venue, they knew that the music was going to be perfectly pitched, not loud and pumping, but a nice level that you could talk, be educated by the music, and it became a living room. It became your second living room type.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, and it was a venue run by Simon Trounce, who put his heart and soul into it, and you could see that it was set up like a living room. You know, there'd be overblown candles in the corner of the room and leather sofas, and the lighting was low, and it just created an atmosphere that made people feel like family. Yeah. And that was a very special time for me because it really did make you connect more with the music that you were playing. And people were not afraid to share their feelings about how the music made them feel, which was, to me, it was that was so refreshing that there was no agenda apart from going to that place. Yeah. Good times, as they say.
Good times. What were you playing then? Had you moved on further, or what were you?
I was playing at that point. I was actually playing a number of things, depending on what night was on. I usually took control of the nights that were the most difficult to fill.
Okay, yeah.
So I would sometimes play a Friday, sometimes a Saturday, but more often than not, I'd play Tuesdays. And
sounds like an unusual day,
yeah. I would often play Tuesdays, but with Tuesdays I would play the down tempo side of things, which alludes to the 3 records that I've picked for today. Perfect. Which we'll get to later on. So,
absolutely.
So I would, but I'd also play more modern style records that were coming out, the new age soul, and 45s that were being released by people like Paul Johnson and very soulful records. But with new age style beats and whatever. So I could incorporate soul next to newer productions, next to beats, and I called the night Black Jazz in commemoration of the label Black Jazz.
Yeah.
And every now and again we'd slip in a little cozy half hour of Black Jazz, you know, just in the middle of it all, just to take the whole night somewhere different. So so that's what I would do on a Tuesday. It was musically free.
Yeah.
You know, I could open up the record boxes to do pretty much whatever I wanted to do without any negative judgment, because it was all going to be good, which was great and very liberating as a DJ.
I was going to say liberating must be one of the things, because, you know, you've obviously played thousands of gigs. There are points at which you're interacting with an audience and you know that they're going to be looking for something which is perhaps not going to be something you could experiment too much with, because you're there to keep them entertained and to move them through. And if it's a club night or something, so to be able to just take your time, breathe, relax, and play things that you're that are much more different, I suppose, must be really nice.
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, for me, I do this because I want to play new things. I want people to discover new music, and I'm passionate about finding new things.
Yes.
So every day I wake up, I'll spend many more times trying to just find the next connection to an old record that I have, or and trying to bring something that fits into another, something that flows naturally that you might not have heard before. In fact, you know, when I do my radio shows, I do say this is soul music you might not have heard before.
Brilliant.
And some people say that's a snobbish collector's mentality, but I don't agree with that. You know, it's I think that very often the people that are finding the next sounds are the people that are finding the next classics.
I think so. Also, it could be paintings, it could be sculpture, it's curation. There's something about that you're shaping an experience for people, and you're doing that from love, and you're doing that based on experience and knowledge. And so I think it's something to be celebrated, that, you know, it's like filmmaking as well. I mean, some of the best films we see are where they take it into a different direction. So I would be totally on board with your kind of instincts in this. I don't think it's snobbish at all. I think it's how we are as humans. We all want to see or experience or see something new, hear something different. Otherwise, we would just listen to Now That's What I Call Northern Soul, Volume 5 or whatever it is.
5?
That would be too far. And that's no disrespect to people that like what they like. But I mean, I think it's human to be curious, isn't it? And I think you're in a lovely position where you can feed and satisfy your own curiosity and use that to bring other people with you.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. It's from how I program a set, or how I put together a record box. It always starts really with, what records do I think I can bring to the dance that people haven't heard before? But I'm not going to load the record box up with 100% of unknowns. But I want my set to have maybe a feel that 30%, 50% of the set you might not have heard before. If a whole set of complete unknowns in a dance environment, I don't think, unless you're playing a specific event that really wants you to, you know, go the whole hog with that. Like for example, Soul Function actually is a place like that. But when I played the D8, for example, when I programmed my record box there, I knew the Edith Mourinho, which we alluded to off air earlier.
Talk to me about it, because I was going to talk to you about, because you played 2 sets for us. You played an early set, and then, you know, you came back later and you opened with the Willie Dale, and it's got all of the atmospherics, hasn't it? And it goes boom, boom, or whatever it does. And then I was standing by the bar when you put it on, and everybody stopped what they were doing and went, hang on, and just boom, like this. Because how rare is that record? It's very rare, I think.
It's ridiculously rare. Yeah, it's got a great storyline, really. The guy who discovered it, Alex Rodriguez, he was living in Bakersfield, so just 2 hours north from here.
Yeah,
and it's a Bakersfield. So he found it out in the dig. He found, I think it was 6 copies he found originally.
Right.
And then so in the original stack.
Yeah.
But then he found a couple more after he did a bit of digging and diving. So I think the initial run of that he found was, I think, 8 copies.
Okay.
And I think there's only been 1 or 2 others that have come out of the woodwork since. So
yeah,
I think he'll be lucky to. I think it's about 10 copies.
Yeah, because that's what made it interesting.
Circulation.
Because when you played it, it is that moment at which, and I remember I've talked about this with other people. We'll never be in the same space as that record again, hearing it being played out over a system. And that to me is very interesting because it's a piece of vinyl. It has the lovely story that you've described. It has all of those things. And then I was in a room where you played it and everybody knew it instantly because we all know it. But it was the fact of you bringing it, programming it, playing it, that I think was really, there was a standout moment for me. One of the many standout moments of your second set, because I think you also played Elder Ward, didn't you? It'll All Be Over or whatever, which is, I love. And then you dropped. So
good in the club.
It's so amazing. Good in the club, that record. And then you dropped Edith Moreno at the end. And I think you were generous enough to give it its European debut.
I'm pretty sure that was the case. I was excited to play the D8 because for all the years that I've been DJing, I've never crossed over the waters to Ireland when I was in London. I've never done it. To me, it was a bit of a failing in my gig years. In that somewhere on the line, I was so close to such a rich musical culture. Yeah. That I never made it across the water. Yeah. So I was grateful, stroke relieved to finally tick Ireland off the box. And Dublin was a great gig. I really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. And the one thing I wanted to do was do something special for it. Obviously, it's how to me it's how a DJ should play when you're asked to play any event. Is you should always try and make that night special. You did. I thought, well, I thought one way that I could do that is by debuting the Edith Moreno record, which is...
What's the story with that?
Well, for so long, it was the missing catalogue number in the Savoy gospel catalogue. No, you looked at the discography, and it was just a blank number. And talking of which, we have...
Yeah, show it to me, please. Now, it's a promo, isn't it? Or is
this is this would have been a test pressing. As it actually says on the back, it says test pressing right there. Yeah. This probably only would have had, usually with test pressings, would have had maybe 5 copies made up. Okay. So that you tested, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's just a test to make sure the pressing is fine. Yeah. So this is an original test pressing from the Savoy label. Yeah. The first time it came up for sale ever. Yeah. And I had to have it, and I spent a lot of money on it. But to me, it's worth every penny because it's a bit of history.
It's a stunning track. Yeah, it's a stunning.
But it's a very important piece of history. Yes. For a very important record label.
Yeah, absolutely. Savoy is a massively important record label.
Yeah. I'm lucky to report actually that we're just about to have a new compilation come out. Dave Hill and I from Extrafonic. Yeah, I've been working on a Savoy record label compilation.
Fabulous.
And it's coming out on Honest John's later this year. It's going to be in 3 volumes. Yeah, where we've taken on the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. And Edith Moreno is going to be in there. So
that's amazing because the single was re-released last year, I think, wasn't it? And it's got Helen Hollins on the back, I think, hasn't it? Yeah.
That was a little snapshot and a little preview of what's going to be on those comps.
I bought it straight away. It's just, I mean,
thank you.
Well, no, the moment I heard it, I think I was talking to Tony, one of the other DJs, and he was like, "This is this," and we were like, "Whoa!" like that. It was amazing. So let's keep going. I'm going to ask you. The big thing, I'm guessing, is in order to continue your vinyl archaeology, you move closer to the source. That was in 2005. Perhaps you might talk to me about what that was like and why you decided to do that.
Well, luckily for me, the purpose was twofold. Actually, it was I was lucky enough that I had people living here I had relatives here since I can remember.
Yeah,
in Los Angeles. So we'd come over whenever we could to try and just to visit them. First time we came over, I was 15.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
1985 that was. So, and from there, I discovered record stores that were. I would just go and have a little fiddle around, just down the road from where my aunt and uncle lived.
Yeah.
Was a Tower Records, and back in the mid '80s, they had quite a nice collector's section there, second-hand section. Yeah. So I would just go and rifle through there, just take the Greyhound bus down the road, and just get into. So that was the first time that I started to nitpick.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say I was collecting at that point by any stretch, but I was just having a little rifle and getting
testing the water.
A little bit dusty, fingers a little bit dusty.
Lovely.
But so I got very familiar with Los Angeles from the age of 15.
Yeah.
When my wife and I moved here in 2005. Yeah. She was actually offered a job here.
Brilliant.
And I remember the conversation that we were having on the phone, and she said, "I can either stay in London or there's this job in Lot." And I said, "Let's do it, go."
Right, that's it. Boom, we're on.
yeah. I think she and for me, I was just getting a bit frustrated with living in and around London for various reasons. I still love my hometown. I really do. Yeah. And I love going back to visit it. But living there was something that I just wanted to branch out.
Of course, yeah.
From a personal level. And with my wife getting a job here, we were able to take that chance. And we grabbed it with both feet running.
Good, good.
All four of our feet running.
All 4 feet running at the same time when you landed.
And so for me, it was getting me closer to the source. Yeah. Being able to travel within the States without having to take transatlantic flights all the time, which at one time I was taking 3 or 4 transatlantic flights a year to go on record digs.
Just to hunt stuff, yeah.
So it's put me closer to getting that not just the hands but the knees dirty as well.
It is archaeology. Your whole language is evocative about getting the dust and then on your fingers and then hunting down these things. Give me a kind of a sense of a day in the life of a vinyl archaeologist. And then also we've been skirting around it, but I want you to talk specifically about gospel, because that has become the thing you're synonymous with, I guess. So we could do that in either order. What would you like to do first? The day in the life of a collector? Or
well, the day in the life of a collector in today is very interesting on how it's evolved, because we alluded to and talked about earlier about record fairs and mailing lists.
Yes.
And that was the nip and the tuck of hunting for records in London.
Yes.
Those are the main areas for me. And then go off to come over here and take get the A to Z or the A to Z, obviously, when you're here. You say, we need an up-to-date A to Z. Then you just watch the blank slate.
Yeah, no one knows what you're talking about.
And just phoning up record stores on the way. Do you have any records? And that type of thing. Whereas now, you can go on online. People will tell you whether you're open or not, or whatever. So, my average day at the moment is the first thing that I do every day is that I'll check my emails, see if any connections have come in. See if any records have dropped in on my wants list on Discogs or wants list on eBay. So, which isn't, my wants list is not very big. It's that I'm generally looking for the records that intrigue me the most are records I've not heard of before. So it's very, very difficult to have a wants list of things you don't know. So,
but that's what makes it so exciting, isn't it? Because you're heading off into the unknown, and as you say, you might come back with nothing, or you might come back with some amazing finds. And it sounds such a wonderful thing to be doing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's a great day-to-day process. I'm lucky enough to have some very good record shops near me where I will always find something. I do cast a bigger net than just gospel.
Yeah.
And there's some great connections to be made with some really good, high quality record stores just in my locale. So
yeah,
I will probably go out. I'll probably go out and dig just locally 3 times a week, 4 times a week.
Yeah.
And see what's out in the racks.
Yeah.
But I do spend a lot of time scouring for information online.
Yeah.
I also spend a lot of time putting my radio shows together, which is therapeutic because it gets me through my collection as well.
Of course, it's a way of collating your own stuff, isn't it?
Yeah. So it gets you through what's come in.
Yeah.
And as you're doing the radio show, you're looking at the labels and making connections. Oh, so such and such producer was involved with this. Didn't see that when I picked it up. And then you make another connection that there's another label, you know.
So it's about one name at a time, one label at a time, one record at a time, is it?
I mean, sometimes you'll pick up an album and for example, I have this album here, which I'm going to discuss later on with you. But you look at the cover and you're thinking, well, that looks interesting.
Yeah.
I would have that immediately would have been pulled out of the crate.
Yeah.
And I would at least have that on the turntable to listen to that if it was in the record store.
Yeah.
But you flip it over and you have this glorious picture. And immediately you'll be thinking, and then you start to make connections here of who's who, which I'll talk to you about later.
Well, do you want to talk about it now? Because the audience are going to be going, he can't put that back down. He has to finish the story. And I'm sitting there going, don't put it back down. Tell me the story. So, Greg, tell me the story of this record, please.
Well, this is actually related to the first record that is my choice.
Okay.
In the 3.
Okay.
And I will put it down just for 1 second.
No, you do what you want to do. I hear.
And so the first record that I chose in the 3 in the record room, was Little Shadows on Judgment Day.
Yeah.
And this is on the Mission label.
Okay.
And it was based out of Miami, Florida. For me, features one of the best vocalists that I've ever heard, which is Althea Davis.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to actually track down the Davis family because it featured on the compilation that we did, which was The Time for Pieces Now.
Which I was going to ask you about in a while, so that's cool as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But this was what featured on this album was their track Time for Peace, which is a different release, which is this 45 here.
Okay.
But I didn't choose that one for this particular mix. I chose On Judgment Day. And just to give you a feel for what this track was all about.
Yeah.
It sounds like Esther Phillips meets Nina Simone.
Yeah.
In a dark alley.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they duke it out. And what comes out of it is Althea Davis's lamentable, powerful, strong, weak, fragile.
Yeah.
All these, it sounds almost like a cliche, but she manages to get all these emotions in one voice. And I think she was maybe 16 when she did it.
Yeah.
And so this to me is a seminal record, probably top 3 all time.
Yeah.
When it came to do this, when you asked me to do this, it was very easy for me to pull this record out.
Yeah.
I see some people saying, "Oh, it's a tough choice," and yes, but this one was always going to be in there. So,
see, I hadn't heard it before, but actually, when you sent me the mix, it's beautiful. It's really ethereal as well, isn't it? It has a haunting quality to it. I mean,
that's a beautiful way of putting it. Putting it. So, but what they also did is they recorded under different names. So, the Little Shadows is the name of the artist there, but this is the Fantastic Shadows.
Wow. Okay.
So if you don't know the connection between the Little Shadows and the Fantastic Shadows, this is an example of collector mentality. That simple name change may lead you down a completely different garden path.
Yes.
But if you read the label on the 45, it says Althea Davis.
Yeah.
And if you read the back here, it says Althea Davis is the bass player. And there she is, right there. That's Althea Davis. This is her. This is the father of the whole family.
So they were a family group then, obviously. Yeah.
this is Leslie. This is Leslie Davis here, which is also a key vocalist. But yeah, just a phenomenal outfit, really.
Yeah.
Did their fair share of straight ahead gospel, which isn't for me.
Yeah.
But when they hit the nail on the head with the soulful stuff, it's just hairs on the back of the arm stuff, you know.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
And if anybody has purchased the Time for Peace Is Now album, thank you so much, first of all. But secondly, you will hear another amazing track called Time for Peace by them, which is, again, highlights Althea Davis's vocal, which to me is, if she would have been in mainstream secular music, should have been a superstar.
Yeah.
She should have been. But she wasn't. She was tucked away in Miami, Florida.
Yeah.
On a recording for labels like Mission and Zan and Duverne.
Yeah.
You know. And I think she sadly might have passed away. I'm not entirely sure. But when we licensed the Time for Peace track to the compilation, we spoke to another member of the family. We're not entirely sure if Althea is still with us. If she is, and you're listening to this, Althea, please get in touch, because I'd love to talk to you. Please.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of this. And I mean, and that's the other thing about collecting objects. Objects link you to humans, and they link you to memories and stories. And as you say, had there been a different situation, we would have all known about Althea Davis, because, as you say, we would have been inundated with compilations and stuff. But the fact of it being not that story, but the story you've just told, adds further to the sound of the voice when you hear it. It's just...
Yes, exactly. It's for me, it's a complete journey when I hear her. A complete journey, and it's the same now as it was the first time I heard that record 10 years ago.
Yeah,
something like that. It's one of those records that just elevates. And it seems like, again, for A Time for Peace and On Judgment Day, that they're talking about hope, which is a common thread with the gospel, and often misunderstood by people that don't get gospel music. There's a shadow over gospel music that, if you don't really know what it's about, it's easy to say it's just Jesus and God and praise be and that kind of, which is, a lot of it is, but so much of it is records about the state of the society, state of the community, positive messages of hope, and if you take that and you look at it in a soul context, it's just as powerful as any Otis Redding ballad or any secular soul record. In many ways, for me, more so, I think, because they're actually talking about real life situations that are affecting them and their society and and the world that we're living in. You know, and out of it comes performances of pure passion, real passion, and sometimes anger. You know,
well, that's part of it, though, isn't it? There's further, totally. And anger is a big part of it, because you're talking about roots as well, aren't you? You're talking about the origins of things, and without going into some kind of hackneyed cliche, this is where a lot of this stuff comes from anyway, isn't it? And then people move out from, or move into, the more secular area. I mean, there are lots of famous examples, but as you say, a lot of people don't. But then it's about, there's still the power there. It's just these things are less known, and that's what makes them even more interesting.
One of the interesting things about gospel music that you learn about is that gospel music is a hustle to a lot of people. And what I mean by that is that a lot of labels will press the records up, but then that's that. It's up to you, the artist, to sell the record.
Right.
And if you actually listen to some testimonies by artists, if you didn't have a side hustle, which was selling the music yourself, going on constant tour, merchandise, all being produced by you, but the artist, then you didn't make money.
Right.
So you would sell the albums. The record label would press the albums up for you, then give you 1,000 copies, 2,000 copies, and if you sell them for $5 a head, you take all the money. That's it.
Right. Okay.
I can't see Aretha Franklin doing that hustle. You know what I mean? It's, and so, as a gospel artist, you had a choice to make whether you kept performing gospel 100%, or you went into that secular world. Yeah. Very few artists, in my opinion, successfully crossed over between soul and gospel. Obviously, you have Al Green and you have Aretha, and you do have exceptions to that rule, but and they're very big examples to use, really. That they did successfully do that. Yeah. But then you can think of other big artists that have kept going in the gospel scene that slightly crossed over into the secular, which is the Rance Allen Group and people like that.
Yeah, which I've got sitting here.
There you are. Yeah, exactly. So for gospel, it's a hustle too. You know, and I can see why artists didn't stick with gospel 100% for a financial reason, to keep their career moving.
But that's beautiful now, because there's something evocative about constantly being on the road, hustling. And then now that's something similar to what you're doing. You're actually out on the road, tracing in these people's footsteps, perhaps following a lead to a small town or a small pressing or a small label. So I think that's part of the story, because that adds further, not the word I can't think of, but that adds further weight to the legitimacy of these people's stories. That someone like yourself is bothered to go and look for them.
Yeah, it's true. I think I haven't really thought of it that way, but yes, I mean, some of these records are just ridiculously rare to get hold of. For example, there's a brief story that I can tell you about this record.
You just keep talking, Greg. I'm here all night.
We're here all night. Try the veal. There we go. But this is a record that we featured on Divine Disco compilation. Divine Disco Volume 2. That we released on Cultures of Soul. And I wasn't sure how we would get on with this record, just because it's amazing, but I just knew that it was super rare. And with the name of Mr. Jesse R. Maguire, I just had a feeling that he was going to be very tough to track down.
So how did you find it?
Well, luckily, Cultures of Soul can weave their way into many pies. And they came back and they legitimately spoke to this guy. Because when they first got back to me, I said, "Are you sure that you spoke?" Because everything has to be 100% licensed for these compilations. So I wouldn't have it any other way.
No, not at all.
And so I was amazed that they got hold of him, first of all. But when it came back, first of all, the story behind this 45 is that it's a complete screw job by the church that he was performing in. First of all, the name of the track's completely wrong.
The
actual name of the track is Jesus is on the Main Line, which is a staple, but he does this disco funk cover of it, instrumental, which is absolutely amazing. You can hear it on that album right there. And when Jeff at Cultures started to talk to him about this, it was recorded by a church. 50 copies were pressed only.
Wow.
Yeah, and because it was a screw job on the naming was wrong. The track is named "His Eyes on the Sparrow," which is another
standard, isn't it?
Standard, yeah. But it has absolutely nothing to do with the riffing of Jesus is on the Main Line. So on the other side, it has no mention of Jesus is on the Main Line. So it's a complete mistake on part of the label is concerned. Yeah. Consequently, the church just went and threw most of them away. Wow. And as far as I know, there's only 2 known copies of this at the moment. I've got both of them. I'm genuinely interested to find out if there are more copies. You know, I'm never one of those guys to say I've got the only known copy. But when records like this surface, it's always good to stimulate chat about. So where are they? Where are the other copies? And so if anybody else is actually owns a copy of this and is listening, then please
let me know.
Because I'm genuinely intrigued to find out. And
just going back to the gentleman very quickly.
I think Mr. Maguire would be interested as well.
That's what I was going to say. Was he surprised when people got in touch with him?
I didn't actually have any direct contact with Jesse, but as far as Jeff was concerned, the guy who did, he was. I think, he was amazed.
I bet he was,
and grateful.
Yeah,
and now he has his work immortalized, if you will, on a compilation album that sold really well. Got support from BBC Radio, BBC Radio 6, and support around the globe for it, which is amazing. So, as far as Mr. Maguire is concerned, I think he was pretty made up about it all. So, and I was made up that we could find him.
It's a lovely story. It's a lovely story. Yeah.
And that was through digging in a store in the Midwest.
Yeah.
And bizarrely, it was digging through a stack of records that many collectors have been through.
Yeah.
And another collector came in the store whilst I was there, and I remember him looking at me and going, "You won't find anything in there. You won't find anything there. We've all been through it. You won't find anything. All I'm going to say is, Breck, boom." So, yeah. But that's a great story there. So and brings you around nicely about the mentality of collecting.
Yeah, I think so. Well, then, are we on your third record?
No, we're on the second.
Let's go to the second record then,
which is this one right here, and it's Reverend Robert Welch.
Yeah,
here holds tomorrow on the wonderful Champ record label. Now, there's not an awful lot known about Reverend Robert Welch.
Yeah,
and the Twilight Gospel Singers of Alabama.
Sounds amazing, doesn't it?
But the interesting thing about pulling this record is that the Champ catalogue is one of the most renowned record labels if you're into collecting gospel.
Right.
Records that came off of this label, which are featured in the soul scene, Sacred 4.
Yeah.
Truth and Devotion,
mm-hmm.
A whole clutch of other things. Also very much renowned for their ballad output, their sweet soul output.
Yeah.
And it was a great record label. The engineer is Jim Stanton, and comes out of what you wouldn't necessarily think is the hotbed of gospel, Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay,
certainly black music gospel, and you wouldn't think that Nashville, Tennessee would have a holding against Detroit, Chicago, LA, the Carolinas, Ohio. Yeah. But sitting in Nashville was arguably one of the most collectible record labels in the genre, which is Champ Records. So for me, the vocal is just, again, the records I'm talking about here centers a lot around the vocal. And how the delivery is so poignant and uplifting, and really comes from within. And these are records that I listen to a lot at home. When I'm out on the road and when I'm touring, obviously my play box would be designed for people to make people dance, make people move. These records here are very much what I come home to. And I remind myself that this is the good gear. This is the good stuff. This is what keeps me ticking in real searching for things like this. And then you can make your marriages and your cross movements and through records just like this. So very important record for me, and an amazing vocal performance.
It's stunning.
Robert Welch.
It's stunning. I mean, the mix you sent me, it's there's quite a bit of space in the mix as well. And that adds to it as well, I think. And it's a beautiful organ going through it, isn't there, or some kind of keyboard or something, which really just, again, it's fragility. These are very, very delicate things. As you listen to them, it's almost like they might kind of fall apart. They don't, and they are beautiful. But I mean, I was so thrilled to hear the first two because I hadn't heard either of them before. And it was a real eye-opener. I can see why you would want to sit down after having been out on the road and just put that on. Because they have something, there's a soothing nature to them as well, I think. A comfort is a better word, I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's when I listen to those, it's generally with my headphones on.
Yes.
And headphones on, crank it up a little bit, close the door,
yeah,
and get into my own little world and space about it, and you know, just listen to those records.
Yes.
You know, because like you say, there's the case of the tracks that I've selected. Less is more.
Yeah,
and it is about the space that they've left to let the vocals absolutely shine.
Yeah.
And for me, where gospel really does perform at its best is with those vocals, whether they be singular vocals, vocal harmonies, vocal groups, quartets, or whatever. That's the essence of real good gospel. Is what's happening in here, you know, and from here.
Yeah, it's what makes it kind of stops you. And that's what, because you can imagine if they were singing in church, you'd all be watching and listening, and you wouldn't interrupt.
Hang on, there we go. Yeah.
But that's the beauty of it, because at the same time, it's a small round object that, as you say, for a lot of people was thrown away or ignored or was seen as defective, with some of the other examples you're talking about, or forgotten, hidden, ripped off, stolen. And yet when you are in the presence of it, it is something extraordinary. It's something, and it's not, and it's also, it's not the same when you hear it as an MP3. There's something about the holding, the handling, the cleaning, the ritual,
everything.
I guess. Yeah,
everything. The process, exactly. And then what we call, in air quotes, the process.
Yes. The process.
yes, exactly. And I'm not afraid to buy a G+ record.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people will say, no, it has to be VG upwards.
Yeah.
To document that record, I will almost certainly buy any form of record, and if I don't have it, and at least I will document it as an archaeologist.
Yes.
Whether I get to play it out is a completely different matter, but it's. I'll always try and renovate any condition record with. I actually have some friends which have higher grade cleaning systems that can, one friend in particular, he renovates African records, which can be if you've seen what you think is a G+ record from what some people call Detroit condition. See a G+ record in African condition.
Okay.
If you can imagine, if your record has not been stored well in an African continent where it's 110% dust every day, and that dust gets into the grooves, and this guy can bring up African records to a playable standard, which is amazing.
Wow.
He won't tell anybody what his cleaning process is. You just pay him a little bit of cash, and then
he gets it done.
Goes away and does it.
It's the way to do it, though, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of, it's interesting also about condition, isn't it? Because as you say, there's a reason for buying records, and that isn't only just to play them. Sometimes it's as you say, so that you then have it and
have a marker.
You have a marker, or then you can then have one copy and then see if, like you were talking about with the other records, see if other people have got copies, and then continue the conversation about the objects. Let's go to your third record, because out of the three you chose, that was the one that actually genuinely put a tear in my eye. It's just, I mean, seriously, Greg, I don't know what you're doing to me, but that third record, so I'll let you go, take it away.
Well, the third record is actually a record which is a deep meaning for me, because before I show it to the camera, I just want to give you a spin on what happened here. I just finished doing a Deep Funk Club, and I made some money that night, which went straight into the pocket because I was flying to the States the next day, on a trip. And so I had I'd heard about this record store that just had a nice hit of records in fresh, and I don't know if you've seen them before, but when you go into a record store that's just had a fresh hit of 45s in from certain areas, and they're old jukebox stock. They come in rings, iron rings. So people will be clearing out a jukebox, and they'll just put them on a wire ring, loop them up, and put them in. So I go into this store, and there's all these wire rings hanging around, and I'm thinking,
here we go.
Here we go. Yes. And what came out of it was a stack of records. Unfortunately for me, if I'd have known now, the old adage, if you know then what you know now.
Yeah.
Then, but I'm sure I left so much stuff there. But in that stack that I pulled out, comes this record, and before I get there, I asked for how much for this stack of records, and the guy looks at it and he's pricing them all up, and he priced this thing up, and I think it was 25 cents. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's something to this gospel lark then. Yeah. And it became a record. It became a record because it's both sides, actually.
Right.
And the record is The Lovers of God.
Yeah.
And the Elements on Shatinga.
Stunning. Absolutely stunning.
Yeah. And it's actually a record recorded 10 minutes away from here. From where I live. Yeah. And the fascinating thing about this, you mentioned off air about the quality of the production here. Yeah. Well, these guys, Larzette Collins, they recorded 2 45s. One is The Lovers of God. One is The Fabulous Tempos on Shatinga. Yeah. And they recorded it in Ted Brinson Studios. Now, Ted Brinson was a black postman. Yeah. Who spent all of his extra cash on building a studio. Wow. We're talking about. He was born in the early 20s. Yeah. And he got his start. He spent so much money on his studio, which he built in a garage. Yeah. In the back of his parents' house, and by the 50s, he had actually ascended to such a level that he was recording surf music. Yeah, and high quality surf music. Yeah, in Los Angeles. Word gets out that this guy knows what he's doing. Ted Brinson, Theodore Brinson, actually. Yeah. And they record Earth Angel in his studio.
Oh, okay. That's the Marcells, isn't it? No.
Yeah.
I can't remember. No, Marcel's was Blue Moon, wasn't it? It's too early in the morning for you. That was Blue Moon, the Marcells, wasn't it? Yeah, anyway, don't let me interrupt.
Earth Angel, so he gets a major hit on his hands. Yeah, but he never moves the studio. He keeps everything all in the garage in the back of his parents' house, and he just keeps adding to it and adding to it. And apparently, there is actually some Googleable. That one is Googleable. Yes, there's some Googleable information about it, and how amazing that from the outside, it was in a kind of a spit and sawdust neighborhood. Yeah, and it just looked like a regular old garage. Yeah, But he said that, this guy said you open the door, and it was a perfectly positioned and appropriated mega studio in there that was capable of doing all kinds of So this gets recorded by Ted Brinson, and Ted must have been, when this was recorded, he would have been into his 60s. No, into his late 50s maybe, something like that. Yeah. And I think, it's 1970. There you go. Read the label before you say things. Yeah. So he would have been about 50 or so when this was recorded. Yeah. And for me, again, all about the vocals, all about the harmony, but yet he's able to generate so much richness of sound, almost a Phil Spector style sound in his orchestration, out of a studio which is no bigger than probably the garage in your own house. Yeah, it's an absolutely amazing piece of work. Yeah. I've been to the location. All you see is a garage. That's it. That's it. But out of it comes this absolutely exquisite record. And as I said, both sides as well. It's a two-sider, and all for the price of 25 cents. It's the record that started me off properly on my gospel journey. Properly. I had a few bits and pieces that I'd crept into the collection before then. Yeah. But when this one came on for 25 cents, as clean as the day it was pressed.
Beautiful. It's just beautiful. The shine of vinyl. It's just, I don't know. Look, everything about that record, I haven't stopped thinking about it since you sent me the mix. I don't know what to say about it other than I wish it was in my box. It's stunning. There's something for me. It sounded otherworldly. It sounded, and now you've told the story of the production, which sounds like it was a real labor of love. This guy building this studio, you know, devoting his life to some kind of sonic architecture in some ways, a kind of a sonic temple sort of thing. And then did they ever...
I never thought of it like that way, a sonic temple. That's exactly it. All just down the road from here. You know, this place would have been a mecca for people that, and like you say, Mr. Brinson, it was probably labor of loving it at this point. I mean, Shatinga, they're not going to have any money. Any money of real note to make that record move. No, you know, I don't know how many were pressed of that, but I'd be surprised if it was anywhere past 300 or 500 or something like that. So to actually find a record like that, the record store was in the Midwest. Yeah, so it had already travelled 2,500, 3,000 miles from here. Yeah, in itself, it was. If you believe in messages from God, then that was the one for me to say, now's the time to take this gospel thing a bit more seriously. And really, but I don't think I was the first by any stretch, but there are people like Big Joe Lewis who've been collecting gospel before I had. And, but for the era that I'm mining and looking at, and the style, because I'm not really that interested in straight ahead church and and choir style recordings, but for the funkier, the soulful, the deeper side of things, I think it's a genre that have been way overlooked for far too long. Once it is hard work to mine the genre, because it's such a big umbrella of stuff. It's such a big umbrella, and very often you don't know what's in the grooves until you actually put the needle on the record. You know, you think you've got the connections all worked out, and there's the producer from that record, and then you realise it's from 1983 and a complete synthesized turkey. You know?
No, it's just listen. If I wanted to listen, because I know you are very, very active in terms of cloud, mixed cloud and things, Dublab as well, and 45 Live. If I wanted to hear your stuff, where would I be able to find you, Greg? Where do you share your love and amazing knowledge of this kind of music, especially at the moment when you can't go out on the road?
Well, I spend quite a lot of time doing my radio shows. I'm very proud of them all. For gospel, specific gospel, we do the Divine Chord Gospel Show, which is on dublab.com.
Right.
We broadcast that the fourth Wednesday of every month. And then we archive it on Mixcloud Select.
Perfect.
So you can find a whole myriad of, I think we're up to 105 shows now. We started running them since in 2011. So we started running them. And then I also do other shows where I branch out into the bigger side of my collection, which is the 45 Live crew. And that's run by Pete Isaac in the UK from Bristol. It's a crew of DJs which involve people like John Moore from Ninja Tune, Andy Smith, Ex-Portishead, DJ Woody, people that have various styles and abilities to bring to the 45 playing environment. What it does for me is that it enables me to do to explore all sides of my collection. As the opening riff to the show goes, jazz, blues, soul, old school rap, something like that. So that's what we do with that. And again, you can find that on Dublab. That's the first and third Fridays of the month. And again, we archive on Mixcloud.
I can leave the links in this episode. I can put the links underneath this. So everybody watching, if you want to find Greg, I'll put all the links to all of his various places so you can follow up.
Great. And the last one was I do Divine Discotheque on Soho Radio, which is every Sunday morning, 8 a.m. UK GMT.
Okay.
Which is waking you up for the rise and shine. Yeah, you know, you've got to have your show statements ready to
Absolutely,
go.
absolutely.
And what that show does is I explore soul. Really, it's a trip around the musical universe of a vinyl obsessive. So, and it's
what a
always
mission
original.
statement! What a mission statement! That's brilliant.
Yeah. And it's music from my collection, so I can play jazz one week, I can play new beats, I can play soul, etc., etc. Just anything that's taking a trip around a DJ's racks, you know. So.
Listen. I'm going to have to say, Greg, that you must come back on this show, please, because my feeling is we've only just scratched the surface, and I've just sat here listening to these amazing stories, and it's just such a thrill to hear the care that you have about this as well. You really care about this. It's really important, not just because you want to own the things, but you want to know the story. You want to know the people. You want to, if you can, connect people. You want to be able to bring stories together. And that's just so inspiring. I'm just going to say, Greg Belson, thank you so much for coming on in the record room. If everybody has been watching this, please subscribe to the channel. That way, every time an episode appears, you're never going to miss another episode. But I'm just going to say once more, Greg Belson, it's been a real thrill. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barney. It's been a lot of fun. Let's do it again sometime.